the Citizens Bond Committee meeting to order. And I'm asking Pati Tijerina if she would call roll for the steering committee members that are in attendance.
Ricardo Morales. Sylvia Bruni.
Present.
Ira Redondo. Lalo Uribe. Lara Montemayor. Joey De Leon.
Present.
Thank you. And now if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I'm moving on to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes of the Citizens Bond Committee held on Wednesday, June the 12th, 2013. There be a motion from the steering committee to approve the minutes of the June 12th, 2013 meeting of the Citizens Bond Committee as presented. A motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 3, opening comments by committee members. Persons who are committee members wishing to comment publicly must do so in the public comment portion of this meeting, which will be designated at the beginning and at the end of each meeting. Comments shall be limited to current committee agenda items. No presentation shall exceed 3 persons for any side of an issue. Thank you. No presentation shall exceed 3 persons per side of any issue, nor shall the time per subject exceed 10 minutes. Delegations of more than 3 persons shall appoint 1 person to present their views before the committee. For those of you that are not committee members, please be advised that the Board of Directors will have a standing agenda on their regular board meeting, at which time they will make and take public comments on the proposed bond from any citizen. At this time, do we have anyone from the committee that would like to make a public comment? No comments? Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 4. The first agenda item number 4, a presentation and discussion to be presented by Superintendent of Schools Roberto Santos and district staff. Mr. Santos, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Bruni. I also, again, want to thank you all for being here with us today. I know it's Go Spurs Go tonight, so I know we'll try to be as precise and to the point. Today, again, it's strictly a meeting, just more information. As you recall, next week, we're going to meet at United Middle there on Del Mar. There we're going to be breaking down into smaller committees to be able to really dive into the specifics of the different areas. One of the items that the last board meeting, I know Ms. Bruni, Mr. Julio Garcia, and Ms. Ortiz from Alexander had shared with us that they'd like to see we would be able to come up with an additional committee, a committee that would be able to handle either PR or Speakers Bureau. And we want to activate that. We'll have a 6th committee, and then that committee, probably the second to the last meeting, we'll ask for people to sign up for that particular committee. This way, at that point in time, as we're getting ready to go to the board for hopefully a recommendation to be able to pass a bond, to be able to call for a bond election, then we'll have a group of obviously citizens of this committee and staff to be able to volunteer for that. So we're always open to any recommendations. I think it's important that we get your input as to what you hear and what are the things that we need to be able to address in these areas. The other item, I think Mr. Gilpin made this comment last time, is we really don't know what kind of numbers we're looking at. What is it that we're going to look at the bond election? That's what your job is. That's what your role is. As you get into the specific committees, then you can begin to look at what are the needs of the district. And then from then on, we'll move forward with that. But I need to share this with you. We don't have an amount, and we really don't have specific, what it is that our needs are. We know we have a lot of needs, but that's what your job is, and that's what your role is. The last item I just want to share with you, on the last page of the handout, can you put it up, Frank? Last page of the handout, we have a form that we'd like for you to go ahead and please fill out before you leave. It's on the last page of the handouts that we gave you today. To be able to identify which of the committees you'd like to be in, and go ahead and put your preference 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This way, we'll be able to balance all the committees, and then we'll let you know what committee you will be assigned, and we'll try to put you on your first choice. The other item next week, we'll meet at United Middle at the auditorium. From there, we'll identify the committees, and we'll break it down into the different committees at different areas there in the campus. We'll give you all the data. Again, I want to thank you for being here with us. I think it's an extremely important role, and at the end of the day, we do need your support. We need your support. The other item, I think, as we talk about these bond elections, we need to remind everybody at 65 and over, parents, grandparents, it really has no effect on their tax rate. So we're going to need their support. Everybody's got grandchildren or children in our schools or a relative that attends our schools. So it is important that we, through you, get the support of our senior citizens. It is an extremely important group of people that we want to address. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Laida Benavides. She'll talk to you a little bit about the finance. Laida?
Good evening. I promise to speak really, really fast, but for right now, I'd like to introduce Robert Tijerina. He is with Estrada Hinojosa and Associates. He is part of our financial advising team. Last week, the Board of Trustees chose the firm, Estrada Hinojosa, to help us with our financial advising needs for the next 5 years. Estrada Hinojosa have been with us since 2003. They helped us with our 2003 bond proceeds, selling over 142 million in bonds. They helped us do about $102 million of refunding of those bonds of existing debt to bring our taxpayers savings. And then we also issued some other debt to borrow for portables and buses, probably over to the tune of about maybe $25 million. So they've been very active. They're an extension of our finance staff, and they're always, I don't want to say at our call, but every time we do have a request, they're on the phone with us, they get back to us, and they give us the numbers that we need. So thank you, Robert, and your staff. And they'll be part of our, when we're going to be meeting on the finance subcommittees, they'll be there helping us answer questions by the subcommittee members. Just to go on with a quick presentation, I know the presentation is headed as various scenarios bond impact. At this point, we really want to not specifically talk about those things. We want to share more of our district finance situation so that you can be our voice out there to the community that aren't part of the public school community to talk about finances. I don't expect any of y'all to speak like an accountant, but you know what? Sometimes you can really sound, you can give them a revenue number or say, no, that's the tax rate for this. So that's my job, to try to at least educate the committee in certain things about the district. Just to let you know, the source of this information comes from our AEIS report, Academic Excellence Indicator System report, that all school districts have to send data to the state, and then they accumulate it and compare district to district, district to state. And so from our last AEIS report that you can find on our Texas Education Agency website, UISD per pupil cost for the 2011 year was $9,889. The state average at that time was $11,146. What this indicates is that we really do try to run an efficient shop with the resources we have available to us. The revenue is $9,589, state average $10,339. We actually operate, I would say, with 10% less than the average school district out there in the state of Texas. And there's over 1,000 of them. UISD Administrative Cost Ratio, this is a ratio that TA looks at to make sure that we're not spending more on administration than on other functions of the district, such as instruction and other areas of school support. Right now, that cost ratio, the way we calculate it, is at 7.18%. For a district our size, Texas Education Agency allows a ratio of 11.05%. So we feel we're running an efficient operation at that point. UISD tax value per pupil, we're at $253,000, and this value, this is the way the state says how wealthy or not wealthy you are as a district. They get your property tax valuation, and they say, okay, how many students do you have? And then they come up with a per pupil amount. This number is very important because this establishes the amount of financing you get from the state. So I'm just going to kind of use our sister district, Laredo ISD. Probably for sure is less than $253,000. I don't know the exact amount, and that's some information I can be sharing with the finance subcommittee just to make you smarter about our finance situation. But I'm going to tell you that United ISD has never been considered a wealthy district. We've always been, I'd like to say, lower middle class. We have to take care of our needs. We don't overtax we always have had our tax rate lower. Remember I told you about the $1.50, we were always lower than the $1.50. And so you can see the value per pupil at that point, we are below the state average. So if somebody says, no, United ISD has all this money, there you go, there's something to show them right there. And then I did talk about the refunding of over $102 million the past 10 years, where we brought present value savings to our taxpayers of $8.8 million. We actually owed interest rate of about close to 5%. We refunded or refinanced at a new interest rate of lower than 4% or even lower than 3.5% at 3.35%. The last meeting that we had, I know there was a very good question posed on why don't we do something besides bonds, having to go out to our voters. These are the different financing options that are available to a school district. Unlimited tax school building bonds, it's payable from the debt service tax, and we can go out up to 40 years. Our debt that we have chosen here in UISD, we've never gone past 30 years. We've tried to keep it shorter than the 40 years, but those times might be coming. Unlimited tax refunding bonds, again, this is us refinancing existing debt, and that's payable from debt service. Maintenance tax notes, this is payable from operations tax. Now, maintenance tax notes you can only use to renovate or repair existing facilities. So you're limited on what you can use the funds for. Can we use it to add a wing? Possibly. But remember, the term of the debt is 20 years, and you would have to pay back the debt with your operations tax. And again, we're at the cap of our operations tax. Public property financial contractual obligations, we like to call them PPFCOs. They're payable from the operations tax as well, and you can only go out 25 years. And these obligations, again, they're only for personal property, as it kind of says there about property. We buy buses with them, we buy portables with them, we buy major equipment and things of that nature that have a lifetime value of over 10 years. But we do we've had a need to issue these kind of obligations in the past. Again, this was from the last time, but just so that you can go talk to the comadre or the compadre tomorrow. The total tax rate is $1.19, and it's split into two. The operations at $1.04, and there's some pictures there just to give you an idea. This is what we can use that money for. Teacher salary, supplies, utilities, fuel, electricity, insurance. While the debt service tax rate is a little less than 16 cents, and it's to pay back principal and interest on bonds or loans to build schools and pay for other major capital expenses. So again, operations, we're at our max at $1.04. That's all the state allows us to go without a tax rate election. And the debt service is at 16 cents right now. A little bit of information. I showed this information on some charts the last time, but just to the point here, from the past 10 years, you can see our different tax rates. $1.48 in 2003 and $1.19 in 2012. Just a little bit of information on property tax information. Again, our tax rate's 104. It can't go any higher without a tax rate election. Debt service tax rate is about 16 cents. It's been unchanged since 2007. The average UISD homestead value, and this is information we get from the Webb County Appraisal District, is a little less than $140,000. It's $137,400. And that number is important to us because we use that number to show different calculations when we're talking about a tax rate impact on a homestead in a taxpayer in UISD. And then, like Mr. Santos alluded to, and this is real important for the population out there. Remember the poll that Mr. Turco talked about, that the older citizens probably do go vote, and for them to understand that if there is a tax rate increase, if they have a homestead on their property, that their taxes are frozen at that level. They cannot go up unless they do improvements to their home. And then the other thing you may want to remind them is if they haven't gotten their homestead exemption done or frozen, they should go see the Webb County Appraisal District, and they'd be more than happy to help them fill out the proper forms for that. And then district property tax values, remember the chart I showed you the last time, has grown over 22.6% in the past 3 years. I know this is a little misleading in saying, well, you're getting more values to tax, so you should be getting more local taxes. But what happens in the state of Texas, that when you get more local revenue, your state funding goes down. They see you, remember the tax value per pupil? They see you wealthier, and so they send you less money. They have this mechanism called target revenue. And target revenue is a combination of, they're going to give you, let's say, $1,000. And 500 may come from the state and 500 from local. But as your values are going up, you may get 600 from local, and then they'll only send you 400 from the state. So in simplistic terms, that's kind of how it works. But I think it's the misconception that, yes, we're seeing all those values coming in, and we should be getting loads of taxes and revenue in, but at the same time, they would be cutting back on our state revenue. A little bit more information. I call this taxpayer relief. The state provides for a $15,000 homestead exemption for qualified homeowners. And then the Board of Trustees have approved an additional 15% local optional homestead for, again, qualified homeowners. This exemption has been in existence since 1993. And again, it's for UISD homeowners, and there's not too many districts in the state of Texas. We can get that information and share with our finance subcommittee of how many districts out there actually offer such an exemption. And we're not going to find, I don't think there's more than 300, but I don't want to, I'm not a betting person right now. So we actually exempt over $480 million in home values through this particular exemption. And that in tax rate or tax term totals up to about $5.7 million in tax revenue that we do not collect from a homeowner. Now, remember I told you about target revenue, where the state says if you bring in more taxes, we'll send you less state money. However, the way the state works is they tell us, well, wait a minute, you choose not to tax those values. That's your local optional homestead exemption. So we think you are bringing in $5.7 million. So it's kind of like a double whammy. Yes, we give our taxpayers taxpayer relief, but at the same time, we forego getting state revenue because they think we're collecting these taxes. So it's just something, again, it's been in place since 1993. We believe strongly in it, in giving our homeowners some type of tax relief. Just a sample tax calculation. Again, I don't mean to make anybody a mathematician tonight, but again, showing it to the comadre or the compadre. Average value, taxpayer here in United ISD, home value of $137,400. Apply the 15%. If they've gone and had their home qualified as their homestead, they get 15% off, and then you add the $15,000 that the state takes away, so that home actually gets taxed at $101,790. A simple 2.5 tax rate or 2.5 cent would have an effect of about $25 a year on this home, or $2.12. We kind of always put it on a monthly basis because most people are paying their taxes through their mortgage, and so this is the impact to their monthly payment. Again, just an example of how that calculation works. And then a little bit of information on our school construction bonds. Again, The tax rate, a separate tax rate is needed to pay back the bonds, and it must be approved by our district voters. Proceeds from the sale of bonds cannot be used for operating expenses, including paying salaries or pay raises. It can only be used for capital expenditures and a turnkey project of making a school building. Current market interest rates right now are still, I know mortgage rates have started creeping back up, but they still are historically low. I think something between, I saw 3.7% on mortgage. So again, based on what I've seen the last 20 years, rates are still very low, and we don't really see them skyrocketing, but that's why we have our financial advisors on our side. Tax rate increase of about 8 cents the last time we had a bond election in 2003 that was successful. We had told the voters at that point that we were going to have to raise the tax rate 16 cents. But when we figured out how to refund some existing bonds, we issued the bonds in separate issues so that future values could take care of that tax rate impact. We actually only increased the tax rate by 8 cents. And then eventually, I don't know if you remember the chart, it came back down to 15 cents, sorry. Again, just a little bit of information. The last election that we held that was successful was November 22nd, 2003. That was almost 10 years ago. We sold $142 million in school bonds. The projects that were completed were 6 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. We purchased 7 land school sites at that time. And we also did about $40 million of renovations to existing district buildings, including rebuilding Nye Elementary, which at that time was our oldest elementary school. I think it was almost 50 years old by the time we were rebuilding it. So that's, again, some information for the committee to take home and share with, again, their compadres, maybe over the Spurs game. But if you have any questions, again, feel free to either write down your questions or email any of us, and we'll get to you any information that you request. Thank you.
Good evening. I know on the schedule we had a break scheduled, but I think it was short enough that we can go through this presentation real quick and then have a real quick break after that. Just real quick to put into perspective what Laida presented here, if you look at the homestead exemption that UISD provides, which is about that $6 million figure, then that's just the local portion. You add on top of that the state portion, and it probably gets closer to $10 million a year that we forego. That was approved in 1993, and the boards throughout those years have kept that, because at any time they could eliminate that exemption and we would start collecting that revenue. But the board has decided to keep that for the last 20 years. You put a pencil to it, and that's almost $200 million over that 20-year period that we have forgone because the board has decided to give that exemption to our local taxpayers. Real quick, right around 2007, Mr. Santos, Mr. Zuniga had the vision of creating a planning department. These are the individuals that are responsible for a lot of the data that you'll see right now and data that we had last week. I just want to real quickly introduce them. Mr. Mike Marron, our district planner, Ms. Claudia Cavazos, our district planning technician, and Nubia Castillo, our district planning technician. They do a lot of hard work and a lot of hours are put in all the data that we have here today. If you follow along in your packets, you have here, and also Mr. Enrique Rangel in the maintenance department, the construction area, where they were very instrumental in all the planning for all the land acquisitions and so forth. In your packets, we have the new schools additions and land acquisitions. The very first slide, what we are doing here is presenting before y'all is the different enrollment areas and the feeder patterns by high school attendance boundary zones. In this particular slide, we're showing, and the information that you have there is probably a little bit more detailed. It's harder to see on the screen, but we have the LBJ attendance zone. This particular attendance zone has actually 3 middle school feeder middle schools for its particular high school. And then, of course, we have the corresponding elementary feeder patterns for those middle schools. As you can see here in the LBJ boundary and LBJ high school itself, it's right around 104% of its building capacity, so it's currently over capacity. And then if you look at the Lamar Bruni feeder pattern, every single one of those schools is above its capacity. And the Los Obispos area, every one of those schools is above its capacity. And then, of course, the Salvador Garcia area is the Rio Bravo, El Cenizo area that has been declining in its population. More and more people are probably moving into the inner city or city of Laredo from that area. So we've had a decline in that particular case, whereas two of our campuses there, we've actually been able to combine into one where we have the smaller grade levels, the kinder, pre-kinder, and first grade levels, and then the higher grade levels at another campus, just to be able to have some academic success in those particular areas. The next slide will actually show the map of the area itself. We do have a handout that's there that you can pull out and open up, just to kind of give you a perspective there. Let me see if I can click on the link. There we go. Just as a frame of reference, what we wanted to do was to be able to show you, as Mr. Santos mentioned before, UISD is fully prepared when the bond passes to be basically shovel-ready to be able to construct schools at the various sites. We have, through the board's action and vision, we have procured land over the last several years, set aside local funds to be able to get the land acquisition that we need. We have over 400 plus acres to be able to start construction. If a bond were to be passed today, we literally could start construction within 30 to 45 days of a new campus, since we have a prototype and the ability to be able to get that done. What we wanted to do is to show you by high school area what those properties that we own and what they represent. For example, in the LBJ area, we have here a 10-acre property that's located here on the southeast portion of the area there. And what we typically do is, on average, a 10-acre property is typically an elementary campus. A 20-acre property, or roughly around there, is typically a middle school campus. Or in some cases, will be a ninth grade center that we're proposing. Or a 50-acre or more, or 40 acres in some cases, when we've had some tight situations, is a high school campus. So when you see those particular numbers, it's almost a frame of reference of what we're proposing or what the possibilities are there as far as construction. We also have a 14-acre tract right next to the Lamar Bruni Vergara Middle School, which also would be for a potential new elementary school. We have a 20-acre tract that is near the LBJ High School. That probably potentially is a site for a ninth grade campus that would be near the high school. And then we have another 20-acre tract on the north portion of this area, which potentially could also be a middle school or a ninth grade campus, but typically the ninth grade campus would be as closest to the high school as possible. This is the LBJ area. Go back to okay. Then we jump to the Alexander High School. I apologize, they were supposed to be in sequential order, but Alexander High School. We have the peak enrollment at 2754, which represents about 116% of the total capacity of that particular building. Here in this particular instance, we have two middle schools feeding into that high school. If you look at the United Middle School feeder pattern, United Middle School is at about 115% of its building capacity, and Clark Middle School is at 93.9%. Now, when you have those particular percentages, they are somewhat misleading in the fact that even though they are below the 100 percentile, typically you don't have a true 22-to-1 ratio in every campus. Whether it's special programs or any particular circumstances that we have at one of the campuses, it may already be at capacity at 85 or 90% of the building's capacity. What we've been able to do is make things work and fit them into crevices and areas where typically a program you would add a new classroom, but in order to avoid adding a portable building, we try to figure out other spaces to be able to avoid having to do that. So that's what we've been able to do at Clark Middle School. We also have the Clark, Gutierrez, and Newman elementary areas, which are right at those 100 percentiles. And then, of course, Colonel Santos and Nye, which are still in the faster growing areas of our district, are both over capacity. Again, you pull out your map, you're able to indicate on there the actual areas of the properties that we currently own. As you can see here on the map, we have a 20-acre piece of property that is located right off the loop, again, for a potential middle school or ninth grade campus. And then further north, right off Del Mar Boulevard and the Loop, we have another 20-acre property located here, which is the more likely site, since it's closer to the high school, of a ninth grade center in the future. The next area we have is United South. Okay, you look at the United South High School attendance boundary, and we have two middle schools feeding into that particular high school. United South High School is 113% of its capacity. Antonio Gonzalez, one of our larger middle schools, is at 121% of capacity. And United South, which is our largest middle school in terms of numbers, is at 138% of its capacity. As you can imagine, this is one of the faster growing areas in our city. And so the potential for growth in that particular area is it's going to happen. As you also compare it and overlay it to the master plans that we provided to you last week, you can see where the potential future growth is in all of our community. And then you can look at all the other feeder patterns below those particular middle schools, and all of them are over capacity or right near capacity as well. And if you look at, yes. Yes, sir.
These figures here, do they include the core?
Well, this is just what the core building is. Yes, sir. That is correct. So what ends up happening, so like I mentioned before, when you're at 85, 90% of the building's capacity, that's when you're adding portables to the facility because of newer programs and so forth and so on. What's unique about the elementary level is you do have a state mandated requirement of having 22-to-1 ratios, no more than 22-to-1 ratios. So when you have a situation where you're adding more students, even if it's one or two additional students in a particular classroom, you have to look at an additional classroom to be able to house those students by state mandate. Now, we've been able to look at some other avenues in terms of waivers and being able to ask the state to allow for them to have 23 or 24 students. But typically, when it gets much larger than that, I did it again. There we go, testing. Typically, when it gets much larger than the 24 students, then we're having to add an additional classroom by state mandate. So those circumstances create the actual portable buildings that we need. So if you look at all these percentages and you look at the portable buildings that we showed you last week, they all correlate right exactly on all those particular locations. United South Middle School has the highest percentage above capacity. It has the largest number of portables, so it all correlates. In the map that we have also in your packet, the United South map, we have some additional sites here. Again, the school district is prepared and shovel-ready. As you can see here in the southern part of this area, you have United South Middle School and United South High School, and we have about 28 acres located here, which again potentially will be our ninth grade campus. It's closer to the high school. You have another 20-acre tract off of the 359 highway, an 11-acre tract, which is potentially for a middle school and an elementary school. We have down near the, I believe, the juvenile detention center, we have another 20-acre tract. Again, our district covers Webb County, so no matter where we have property, it's always going to be beneficial at some time in the future. So we have a 20-acre tract there for a potential, whether it's a middle school or any other type of facility. As you go further north on 359 or above 359, we have a 34-acre tract that abuts our student activity complex, right out here. We have 34 acres. And then we have a 10-acre tract that's on right south of 59 near the Killam, between Killam and Cuellar Elementary School, that is for a potential future elementary school as well. And then the last area is United High School. Again, one of the faster growing areas of our city. And again, somewhat misleading at 91%. We are probably looking at portable buildings at the new United High School for the start of the 2014-2015 school year. We won't have one this year, but next August, we'll probably have portable buildings at the new campus. And this also encompasses the number of students that are located at the ninth grade campus. So you combine both square footages, and we're still at 93% with all that. We have over 1,000 freshmen at the ninth grade campus. And if you look all down the line, we have 2 middle schools here that feed into United High School, 2 large middle schools. And then every one of their particular feeder schools is either right at capacity or over capacity. Every one of these schools in every one of these areas is a fast-growing area. So even if you have it at 96% in Borchers, we purposely have added boundaries to all the new development that's going to go into the northern part of the district, and it's all going to be going to Borchers. We did that in anticipation of the growth. So that number will be quickly, actually one of the largest numbers that we'll have in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. If you look at the map, pull out the map and you open it up, we have several properties here, which is starting from the southern part going north. We have 12-acre tract here off of the Loop 20 corridor, north of Del Mar and east of Loop 20. We have another 12-acre tract, same area roughly, both potential elementary schools. We have a 10-acre tract here on the San Isidro area. Then we have another 20-acre tract that is right across the street from the new United High School. Again, potentially a 9th grade campus. And then, future thought is if that is built, then obviously the current 9th grade campus would move right across the street of the current United High School main campus. And that potentially could free up the 9th grade campus for other uses, presumably a middle school in that particular area. And then as you go along the Mines Road, and way up there in the Los Pinitas subdivision area, we have about 165 acres. That 165 acres actually comprises of enough land to be able to build in that corridor an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. Potentially what would go in there immediately, if there is a call for a high school, would be an actual high school on the Mines Road, which would be located in this property that we have already. The important part to this is that the school board took the initiative in being able to buy this property, to be quite frank, at a reduced rate, because in the past, and what other school districts have had to deal with, is that when a bond was passed and there was a land component, a land purchase component of the bond, then those landowners or land developers, testing 1, 2. I guess I broke it. Let me get one of the mics. Thank you. Those landowners or land developers knew we had the money to be able to buy land, so those prices were a little bit elevated when we had that funding. What school districts have done in other parts of the state is they'll have a bond component that does purchases of land for a bond election after that bond election. So they'll be buying land for a potential future bond election, and they've already secured the land for that particular bond election. In our case, we're probably set for the next 10 to 15 years and not having to worry about property. So as soon as a bond is passed, we would be able to be shovel ready on the actual construction. The last slide, just to kind of give you a bird's eye view of all the particular areas, is just to kind of give you a comparison of all the feeder patterns and how they relate to the enrollments and the building capacities. Every single one of the areas is over its capacity, or right there. It'll be right there within 100 students of its building capacity. So again, this gives you information and arms you with real data that actually shows an overall picture of what the district looks like. That's it for our presentation.
The time is 6:45, and I'm going to call for a 10-minute break. We'll convene again in 10 minutes. The time is now 6:59, and the Citizens Bond Committee is now called back to order, and I'll turn the floor back to District Administration.
Just also want to share a couple of things. I know Mr. Garza talked a little bit about different properties that we have. And really, we're always looking for properties. If you know of someone that has properties in any area, obviously at a discount price, okay? Not at full price. But I think get a hold of Mr. Garza, Mr. Rangel, or Mr. Zuniga, or myself, or any board member. We're always looking for property even closer because not only for this hopefully bond election, but for the future of United. As you know, every year, we grow. So 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll have properties throughout the district that our taxpayers won't have to worry about having to buy. So anybody that has any leads, feel free to call us, and definitely we're interested in looking at those things. Now, Mr. Hector Perez, Executive Director of Technology. Mr. Perez?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I promise I'll be brief. I've been told I have like 5 minutes between this and the Spurs, so bear with me. Here to talk about technology. One of the things that we do with our bond is to continue to upgrade our technology, and of course, all of our buildings include the latest technology that is out there. As you know, kids nowadays can't live without the internet, can't live without a lot of the resources that are out there. Our curriculum, lesson plans, it's fully integrated with internet resources, district resources. Those are some of the applications that we support with our network. The most important one at the top, instructional technology programs. Those are crucial to the operation of the school district. As you see, the other ones as well, grades, attendance, and a few others. We also became our own telephone company by utilizing the network that we have. Give an inventory of how many computers we have throughout the district. We're close to 20,000 at this time. We have a total of 264 file servers. We went down from 420 to 264 thanks to our virtualization project. We have 995 mobile devices registered in our network at this time as part of a pilot with the Department of Instruction. It includes anywhere from iPads, Kindles, and iPods. Very proud to say that we want to continue to maintain our students-to-computer ratio that you see behind me. That matches the technology plan. The high school is 3-to-1. Middle school is 4-to-1, and elementary is 4-to-1. Remember, that includes our computer labs, our libraries, but those are the ratios that we want to continue to maintain. I'm not saying we're going to buy computers with bond monies. That will not be a good thing to do, but we do buy the other components, the network, the switches that I'm about to show you in a minute. Why do I show you this? Because this is what nobody gets to see. This is what's behind the scenes, okay? This is what's the technology, the expensive switches, routers that are needed in order to support. We have the biggest and fastest network in South Texas, in all the Webb County area, with 46 entities connected together through central office, and then we go to the cloud at a speed of 600 megs, soon to be a gig. A lot of this is paid for with E-rate funds, with federal funds, but a lot of it is paid for also with bond monies, especially for those campuses that don't qualify for E-rate. A lot of the campuses in the north have the population that will not allow us to bring federal money, so that's what we do. Some of the projects we do, we make sure that our new buildings have the latest technology, the latest closets, like this is the main closet where you're going to find this kind of equipment. And also our campuses that don't qualify for federal monies, we'll also make an effort to try to get some funds to be able to keep them up to date. It's very important. The demand continues to grow. There's going to be more devices added as the years go by, and it's important for us to maintain the speed of the network. The kind of technology that we use is what Fortune 500 companies use. We want what's best for our students. We want what's the fastest, the most reliable, because when the network goes down, and I knock on wood, we're very famous. A lot of people start calling us because there's no email, there's no grades, there's no attendance, so we get to find out right away. But our job is to make sure that we maintain that, as we have it. Some of the area that is covered also in the technology is the security. I want to give you a status of, we have 261 high-definition cameras. The high-definition camera really allows you to distinguish the face. When you film somebody, breaking into one of our properties, or there's a fight with some students, high-definition cameras allow you to really get a better image. We still have 1,496 analog cameras that could be eventually replaced with high-definition cameras as part of the security project. We do have a standard. Our brand is Avigilon. And we also have a command center at the police department where the police can access any of our cameras throughout the district. Sometimes the cameras become their eyes, like in the event they break in the middle of the night. They can call the command center so that they can see inside the building before our police department goes in. Just to give you an example, that's the kind of technology and how they use it for our security. Every school's main entrance has an access control system. This system is, you have to ring sort of like a doorbell, and then somebody from the inside will see you on the device to my right, and then they'll allow you to come in. We have that at every main entrance on every campus, okay? And we also have in our middle schools and high schools, metal detectors at the main entrance. That is some of the technology that we use for security. I don't know if you have any questions that I can answer at this time. Yes, sir.
And the other side doors, I mean, it's just a lock or?
That is correct. There is no access control.
Other than the surveillance cameras?
Yeah, there's cameras. There's cameras, but there's no, the access controls will allow you somebody to have a key, like a little card. You scan it, and it allows you to come in. We don't have that on the perimeter of the buildings, only at the main entrance at this time.
And the parking, just a question.
Yes, sir. No, it's okay.
I mean, again, I've been in a lockdown several times at the campus where I work. And some of the people that try to get in on campus came in through the parking lot, staff parking lot. And I was wondering, what kind of security is there at those doors?
On those doors, if they're unlocked, they can come in. I don't know, Mr. Rangel, if what do we have on the side doors? There's no locks like this. They'll have to lock them from the inside so that nobody can come in. That's the only way they're locked.
Typically, all the side doors are always locked.
They're normally locked. The question was, what do we have on the side doors, other than the main door, access control? And our policy is to maintain all those side, the rear door, always locked. That's what the administration enforces.
Yeah, I would recommend that can be thoroughly discussed at the subcommittee meetings. We can get some pricing on what would it cost to have a device like this at every single door on the campus. Whoever volunteers for that committee, can probably bring it up and discuss it thoroughly. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people on that committee. That concludes my presentation. What I was going to show you is something that Mr. Santos asked us to develop, and it's a website. This is on draft right now. It will be launched in a few days once we make some minor. This is our main website. It will be accessed from here where it says Build United on the right side. We click there. It will launch the Build United website. It includes some basic information. If you look at the tabs here on the top, it's just basically all this information comes from the different presentations we've had from the last meeting. If you go to bond history, for example, very interesting slide. It tells you all the bonds that the district has gone for since 1962, and if they passed or if they didn't pass. Just to give you an example, it does have information like, for example, here bond information what Ms. Benavides presented. And you can easily just scroll down and go slide by slide. It tells you what a bond is. We have also the survey results from the Turco survey. So if you want to look at those more to see what the community and the employees were looking at, they're there online. We also going to have here where it says meeting activities. We're going to post the minutes from each meeting. Today, the minutes were adopted, so now we have a document that we can post tomorrow. Okay? It has some pictures that contain, some of the overcrowding in our campuses. You can go, I only have 3 pictures at this time. You can see how crowded they are in the cafeteria. And it includes some of the portables. We just picked Alexander portables as being there. Here on the right, it has a calendar for all the meetings that are coming so that in case you don't remember if there's a meeting or not, you'll have access to this. And this is just briefly a history about the district. And this is the video that we saw last time. In case you want to see it again, you can see about a video of a growing school district. This is just basic information that we have. We have several ideas that we're gonna be bringing up through Mr. Santos. And enrollment growth is here too. This is information that Mr. Barron. Sometimes the websites are very handy when you're talking to your family or your neighbors and they want more information. You can easily refer them to this website that is going to have all this information that we discuss at the meetings. We're also going to put the videos, the video of the meeting as the meeting took place, so that people can go and see it. Yeah? That's it.
Thank you, Hector.
Thanks, sir.
I think the intent here is really, and I think it's input that you all asked us last time, how can we look at having more data out there for our taxpayers and our parents? And I think we're working on this website. I'd say by probably sometime next week, it should be online where anybody goes to our webpage, they can begin to download that information. Then every meeting that we have, whatever handouts we give you, that's what's going to be on the website. Now, the same thing, I know we had a couple of members that were not here last meeting. Every meeting we'll give you a handout that you take with you. Those are the booklets. If someone wants for us to email them the full presentation, we can. The booklets are yours. You can take it with you. Obviously, every meeting, it's important that you bring it with you so we can at least, give you any new inserts and any new information. I think for us, these two meetings were basically just general information about United. Didn't want to get into any specific because I think it's important that all of us have a very good idea of where we've been, where we're going, and what size and what are the concerns that we have district-wide. The next couple of meetings are going to be the key meetings. Need to remind you, please fill out the form, what committee you want to participate in, because that's when we'll get down to the things that we really need at United. And really, it's your input as to what we bring and what we present to the board and to the whole committee. So, Mr. Gilpin, would you want to keep us through?
As I was watching the presentations this evening, I was kind of contemplating what I'd really like to emphasize here towards the end. And one key word, efficiency. I'd really like everybody to come away from this meeting reflecting back on it and thinking about that aspect of what was talked about here this evening. I, as a person that got involved with the school district, I really didn't have any involvement there before other than being a parent and having gone to school there as a student. Didn't know that much about it. Like a lot of people that get motivated to run for an office, I thought I knew a thing or two, but I really found out a lot more after I was already in office. And something that has surprised me a lot is that I do actually consider UISD pretty darn efficient. It's there's a little room here and there for some improvements, and everybody can pick on something. But reflecting back to a particular statistic that was shown here earlier, the amount of money that we spend, and I just want to emphasize this, we spend a little bit less than 10% under the state average. We're a little bit below 10% below the state average. That's pretty incredible when you think about the quality of life in our community and everything we've got going for us. And already we have a lot of advantages here that most communities don't have. And to be spending 10% less than the state average is kind of amazing. I was surprised in that statistic. And certainly that's not a statistic that we want to be, in the top rank either. But I do think where we are in that statistic is a little bit lower than it probably should be. And I think that another interesting stat there was the tax rate. I mean, the only thing that is certain in life is that, your taxes will go up and you'll die, right? I was very surprised to find out that we've experienced a period here where our tax rate came down. Now, granted, our basis has gone up, but it's almost the same amount. So we've had virtually no increase in tax revenue. I mean, plus or minus a little bit, but if you compare it to other school districts over the same time period, we've been very flat. And I found that very interesting, too. I think it probably contributes a lot to us being 10% below the state average. And so we have a little room to do something good here. I think we shouldn't be scared to go ahead and go for it. I think we got to hustle up and get this thing done and get it done well. I think if you reflect back on the history that this school district has with passing bonds and being good custodians, good stewards of the taxpayers' money, having the authority by vote to increase your taxes by 16 cents and not doing that tells you a lot about the mindset at work in the school district. And I didn't know about that when I got on board here. And I would have never, ever, ever believed that I would be talking about efficiency at UISD just because that's out there. People say that. And I'll ask you right now, honestly, for a show of hands, what you really believed about that. And I'm going to say, if you're in administration or you're a school board member, Your hands can't go up on this one, okay? But how many of you would actually raise your hand right now and say that you thought that before this? I don't think anybody in the community can honestly say, hey, we're pretty efficient over there. And actually we are. And we might be a little too efficient at this point if we stop and think about it. And so that's the big thing that I want to stress this evening. You know, we as a school district and as a community have been very efficient as how we educate our kids. And we need to get on with the show here and get these. It's obvious. You see a lot of data here that supports this. And everything goes together, you know. You can't do extremely well at building schools and not do well in academics and not do well in the extracurriculars. By the same token, you won't do very well as a school district if you only succeed in academics and you don't succeed anywhere else. It all balances out. And everybody is a beneficiary of it, you know. The business community benefits from it. Our children benefit from it. That's the most obvious one, but the whole community benefits from this. And we've got to do all of these things to the best of our ability. And so those are my closing thoughts this evening. On behalf of the school board, I'd really like to thank you guys for putting the time in here. And going back to that word efficiency, you'll notice that we're almost through this evening. We really worked on that. We've spent a lot of time, you know, looking at the exact number of minutes that all this stuff takes and so on and so forth. And we know it's important at every meeting, but we knew especially this meeting. We know where you all want to be. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilpin and Mr. Santos, district staff. Very informative. We're going to go on now, and I am reminded to remind you that we're going to do it in an orderly fashion, but you are as orderly as could be. We're moving on now into agenda item number 5, which allows us for comments and questions regarding today's presentation. Individuals who would come up to the podium would be committee members. Those of you who might not be committee members are reminded that the board will have a standing item on their agendas for the next several months, I'm sure, to allow for anyone else to bring comments and questions to the board. But today we would ask that if any committee member has a question or a comment to make, if you would come to the podium, identify yourselves, and we are reminded to keep comments and questions to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment or ask a question? Hey, Orlando.
I'm staying consistent because I'm picking on me back there. No, just to compliment the website, I think it's fabulous. It's a great job. So my hats off. And I don't know if there's the ability to put questions, like frequently asked questions.
All frequent questions, yes.
Right, yes. But other than that, awesome job.
Thank you, Orlando Navarro. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment or raise a question or make a recommendation? If not, then I would like to take this time to conclude our second meeting of the committee, the Bond Committee. Thanking those of you in attendance, and especially Mr. Santos and district staff for information. We also want to thank you in advance because the committee meetings that are going to follow are going to be absolutely crucial. And I want to compliment our district again for having been so careful about planning what's to come. Pardon? Oh, yes. And a reminder, too, that next time we meet, we're going to be meeting at United Middle School. And Cordy is reminding me, I think a reminder to all of you that that last page in the handout where you were asked to indicate your preferences for committees, 5 choices, number 1 being your preferred choice. And then when we meet again at United Middle School next week, right?
Yes.
At that time when we'll convene together in the auditorium?
Yes, in the auditorium.
We're going to, and then we'll break up. All of us will be on that same site, but in different committee rooms, all right? And so the time is 7:20. Yes, sir. 6 committees?
6, yeah, that was it. I was going to remind you about that. The blanks that got passed out had the 5 committees that were original, and and there's that extra 6 committee, you can write it on there.
Which one is Oh, is that one going to start meeting from the very beginning?
No, just at least try to get the names of those people. We can either do it now or as we move.
Can I ask a question, though? Because what happens if you want to, my understanding was that the 5 committees would be working for the next several, and then once decisions are made, then the Speakers Bureau Committee.
It's an added committee.
So can we choose, you might want to choose more than,
Well, I'd say,
yes.
I think for the next couple of meetings, if we're able to, just on the 5 committees, and most likely after we meet the next 2 meetings, then we'll come back to the group, then we'll let that 6th committee for the Speakers Bureau and PR. I think it makes it easier this way. You've got, 5 committees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put your choices, and then when we come back to the full group, Mr. Gilpin, we'll bring everybody together, and then we'll get that 6th committee going. That's going to be a key committee for us, and we need, obviously, members to join that group. Okay? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. There being no other business to discuss, then I would take a motion from the steering committee to adjourn the meeting. So moved by Mr. Morales, seconded? Seconded? By, all right? Yes, seconded. All in favor? Yes. Thank you so much and good night.